Hi everyone, this is Pete Perusic. I want to welcome you to this edition of the Weathered Athlete Podcast, a place for us to honor those athletes that refuse to go quietly into the night. As a weathering triathlete and a physical therapist, I will spend my time talking with those athletes that continue to make the necessary repairs and continue to move forward. They may have a few cracks in their foundation or a squeaky step, and their patinas may continue to fade, but they are no less glorious than years prior. In fact, I feel they have more heart and resolve as they have weathered and can provide the pathway and set the standard that we should all live by. My goal is to determine what sets these individuals apart from the rest of society. After the discussion is over, I encourage you to stick around to hear a breakdown from a physical therapist perspective on how this weathering athlete is able to keep moving forward. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave me a comment, and share with your friends. Today I'm honored to be joined by marathoner and ultra runner Gene Dykes for mile number 18. Gene has such an impressive resume. I encourage you to check out his website, www.ultrageezer.com. With the assist of his daughter, he has set up a great timeline of the amazing things he has been doing. What is hard for me to believe is that he never thought he was any good at running, and to hear that his racing career did not really start until age 56. To the outside observer, one may take a look at all his accomplishments and think he is fortunate to have great genetics. Surprisingly, he feels all those years of just running and not racing has allowed him to stay fresh and healthy. You will soon find out he has put in the extensive work that is necessary to attain the accolades that he has so rightfully deserved. His Just Run philosophy provides a foundation, and his willingness to never miss or cut back on a workout his coach prescribes has helped him to attain some pretty remarkable feats as he has aged. I can promise you that if I look at training and racing with the same have fun viewpoint, who knows what I can accomplish. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. I'm thankful that you're willing to spend some time with me, Gene. You know, this Weathered Athlete podcast, basically I started it for a couple different reasons. One, just to honor the incredible things that people are doing, especially what you're doing. And, you know, as a 51-year-old marathon runner and triathlete myself, I want to be able to do what you're doing into my 70s and 80s. Maybe not break sub 3-hour marathon. I'm still trying to get under 4 hours. But if you can help me get that direction, I'll take every bit of advice that you have to get me there.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll gab about that some more. I love to see people getting more and more into running.
Yeah. So how long have you been running?
I first started running way before anybody else was running. You know, this was back before the first Gym Fix book, and I just decided to go running one day. You know, I must have been 12 or 13 or, you know, something like that. And of course, the first run was pretty much a disaster. I had to walk after only a mile. But, you know, I kept at it. And so basically all through high school, I would just go and run to various girls' houses. You get motivation where you can.
Yeah.
I eventually got onto the track team. I don't know if I was on the track team 1 year or two. But it seems silly to like running and not be on the track team. So I did that competitively, and I thought I was hot stuff. You know, they introduced the 2-mile run, and, you know, I clobbered everybody. And so then I went to college and you know, thought I was going to be hot stuff. But no, I was also definitely an also ran. I mean, everybody showed me up. Opponents, teammates. You know, I was getting lapped once or twice in the 2-mile, and it was just terrible. Coach hated me. You know? I was such an underperformer. In fact, you know, I even ran slower in college than I did in high school.
Wow.
I tend to think it's got to be coaching. You know, I mean, there's just no way you can get worse. But I didn't even come close to doing what I did in high school. I don't know. I worked really hard in workouts, but because I was a terrible distance runner, which back then meant 800 meters, you know, 1600 and 2-mile, I switched to things like intermediate hurdles, high jump, triple jump. I got really good at the triple jump, and so So it wasn't running that I contributed to my team much. It was mainly, field events. And after college, but that was an important reason why I'm a good runner today, I think, is because I knew I was terrible, but I knew I enjoyed running. So I kept running my whole life just for fun. It never occurred to me to enter a race. I mean, why should I enter a race? I'm terrible at it, So, so it wasn't until, some advanced age that I ran into a bad crowd and they talked me into racing again. And, it was really a lot of fun. It was funny. I really wasn't even aware that there were races, everywhere. I mean, I knew there was a marathon here and there, but the fact that there were 5Ks every weekend and 10Ks and half marathons all over the place, it was totally under my radar. So, I got a quick introduction to that when all these guys were running all those races and had me run with them. So basically I've been, and the reason why I say that's why I'm good now is that I didn't burn myself out trying to, and that's in addition to trying to encourage people to run more and more, I actually try and discourage younger runners from running more and more because, I mean, look, you're run, you've got, a job and family, house and wife and kids and even if you did go out and try and race, you're racing against people who are, Olympic hopefuls and so on. You're not going to be that competitive. So my advice for most people through adulthood is just run for fun because, it is possible to have a lot of fun. But if you just grind yourself out and do 100-mile weeks and kill yourself going really fast races, I don't think you have a prayer of being like I am at 70.
Yeah. So when was that first 5K or that first marathon? How old were you when you started doing those?
I was 56 when I did my first race.
Okay.
It was a 7-mile trail race. Boy, it was a blast. I went there with my daughter and, a couple 100 yards on the road, and then we're scrambling over branches and rocks and up through the woods. It was, I had never run like that before. And so that was so much fun. So I think my takeaway from my first trail races was that, wow, this is fun. I'm going to try and run further every year. I'm going to try and run further. I didn't formulate that as something I think I was subconscious that every year I would try and run further. And then my first road race was a few weeks later. It was a half marathon. And, I qualified to bypass the lottery at New York City in that race. They had a half marathon qualifier that was a lot easier than their marathon qualifier. So all my buddies were running New York, so I got thrown into doing marathon my first year because I qualified for it. And they said, "Come on," so I did. And at New York, I qualified for Boston, so I had to do that. I was always going to go further and more often on trails. I vowed to go faster and more often on roads, and that's the way to get better and better. Is each year just try and do a little more than you did the year before.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long before, you're doing things that you would have thought impossible. Both time, frequency, distance. I'm doing things now that, was just, not only didn't I think they were impossible, I never even thought about doing them, because they were so impossible. But, eventually, you just get do a little more each year. It's amazing what happens.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Just look in the mirror and say, "You're going down, buddy."
Yeah,
I'm setting records and things, but to be realistic when I'm giving people this advice is you don't have to beat everybody else. You only have to beat you to have a whole lot of fun competing and running.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your time that first year for that marathon? Do you remember? where you were?
Oh, well, sure. You never forget your first time. I had to beat 3:45 to qualify for Boston, and I ran 3:43.
Okay.
And that was back when if you qualified, you qualified. You didn't have to worry about
Yeah.
qualifying by enough. So yeah, 3:43 was my start of many PRs. For a while there, every time I ran a marathon was was a PR. I ran another PR 2 months later at Disney,
Hmm.
and then 4 months after that at Boston, and just kept advancing slowly, some more than others.
That's great. So, like that just run mindset that you have right now, were you doing any strength training, any stretching, even in the beginning, or is it just pretty much you just always went out and just ran?
I'm just kind of lazy that way, I guess. I probably thought I should, but no, I would just run. At some point, I discovered that if I did stretch, I was more likely to get injured than if I didn't. So that's why I gave up stretching, except as a recovery. If some injury required a certain kind of stretching, well, then I'd do it. For instance, like Achilles and plantar fasciitis. You got to stretch your calf out. But I don't think I've ever gotten injured that way because I didn't stretch.
Okay.
It's more like, yeah, I hit that stone and went down, and that's why I'm injured, or
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. But
Okay. So then as far as like right now, how much are you running a week?
right now,
Yeah.
0.
Okay.
I haven't been able to run. Well, ever since May. In May I had to give up running. And
Okay.
that lasted 3 or 4 months. And then all of a sudden that injury went away. It was some combination of plantar fasciitis or a heel bruise or something. So I was able to train up. I had a week and a half to train for the Boston Virtual Marathon, and I did that. Really amazed I managed to run 3:20 something. And next 2 weeks I was training hard, and then I went out one day and I got about 1 mile, and boy, did I get a pain in my right foot, somewhere along the metatarsals that lead to the little toe.
Okay.
And basically I haven't run since.
Okay.
It's been about 8 weeks now.
Wow. So how has that changed as far as just, I know you're so used to running all the time. What were you in? I saw hundreds of miles a week, correct? At kind of the peak.
Well, I only run anywhere close to 100 miles in a week if I'm running a race.
Okay.
That's that long. No, my typical week is like 45 miles.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then, so now, are you able to do anything else as far as training, as far as exercise?
Well, as soon as I saw that this injury was going to drag on, that I suffered in April and May, I bought an elliptical called a Zero Runner, and have it installed upstairs, and I work out an hour on it almost every day.
And is that bothering you? How's your foot with that?
Oh, it's fine.
Okay.
No impact, doesn't bother either of these 2 injuries that I've been suffering since May. I've been able to keep doing the Zero Runner.
Okay. So what's your game plan, if you have one, of when you'll try to return to doing some running?
Well, I have an MRI Monday.
Okay.
I had an X-ray and they didn't see anything. If it's a stress fracture, it's certainly just a matter of waiting until it's okay. It's hard to believe it isn't, but I just don't know. After 4 weeks, I was down to zero pain, and I let that go on for a week. And then I went out and ran a mile, felt nothing, took a day off, went out and tried to run 2 miles, and at a mile and a half, it was just like the first day. And I don't know if I refractured it or what, but
yeah,
I'm back down to some days no pain, some days just barely. I don't know.
Okay. You doing any physical therapy, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I was so convinced it was a stress fracture, which meant, rest, what are you going to do? You rest. So,
Yeah.
But maybe next week they'll have a different opinion. So we'll
Okay.
see.
Okay. So let's go back then prior to, I'm sorry to hear that, first of all. Hopefully it heals up pretty soon and get you back out there again. Luckily, if anything's going to happen, this is the year for it to happen. Not much is going on.
No, I feel kind of guilty being happy when races are canceled.
Yeah.
Hey, I couldn't run it anyway. Boy, am I glad that was canceled.
Yeah, no one needs to know anything other than this is a podcast, so we'll try to keep it quiet. You're basically in recovery mode this year, which is a good thing, I think, for everybody to maybe take a step back. But I think next year is going to be pretty interesting. I think some people are going to be like shot out of a cannon,
Well, it's funny. Early on, whenever I'd have an injury and I thought, I'm getting older, that means I've lost this time. I'll never get back to where I was. But it turns out that every time I had an injury, I came back and got stronger. And I think that's because when you rest your injury, you're resting your entire body. And so injuries can actually be something that help you out.
Yeah.
I'm not sure 6 months of this is going to help me out. But
yeah.
Whether I ever get back to where I was, I don't know.
Yeah. So the thing is, you were doing, so how long were you running that much? If you think 56 to age 70, you got 14 plus years of kind of a base built up there. So hopefully again, 6 months or a little bit longer is not going to be too big of a loss, and you'll be able to bounce back in. Again, taking it slowly, kind of progressing back slowly is probably the most important thing. So when did you make the transition from marathons to ultras? How'd that happen?
Well, after 2 or 3 years of doing a couple marathons a year, at one point doing a marathon had been on my life bucket list, and so I more than done that. So, okay, let's do an ultra, and I had to do this ultra just 1 week after a really hard half marathon. And I went out too fast, and boy, did I suffer. The last 6 miles was just so awful. But I finished, and I was quite sure that was it, never again. And, but it wasn't like I went out and signed up for another ultra the next week. It wasn't that never again. It was really never again until, it was 2 years later. I was with my crowd, that bad crowd that I fell in with. And one of them says, "Who wants to run Comrades?" Now, most people have never heard of Comrades. Funny thing is, I heard of Comrades back when I was in grade school or something, because, it was an old race even then. In the 50s, it had been going on for almost 50 years. And I had this image, people running through these ridge lines and mountains. And I said, and as soon as he mentioned that, who wants to run Comrades, it all came back to me, oh yeah, what an awesome race. Sure, I'm going to do that. Of course, it turns out it's just a road race, not technical or that mountainous at all. So to train for it, I went out and ran a 50K 3 weekends in a row. And that was when I discovered that, hey, I'm not that tired at the end of a 50K. Maybe I am good at this. And so having done the 50Ks and the 50 miler, the next year I think I signed up for a 100 miler. And a couple of years after that, I did a 120 miler, and then in my first 200 miler was a 68-hour race.
Yeah.
That was do you know a race for the ages?
Yep.
Yeah. So I entered that, and I had 68 hours to run as far as I could, and I managed to run 205 miles, and so I knew I could run 200 miles, and these trail races gave you, over 100 hours to do it. So I said, heck, if I can do it in 60, I can do it in 100. So that was my progression, kept getting longer and longer. And so next year I'm hoping to, extend that. I'm doing signed up for a 250 miler in March and a 330 miler in July, which is probably canceled.
Yeah.
So no reason to think I can't. The reason I think I can do a 330 miler is that at the end of my 200 milers, it was always the case that, yeah, I could keep running, but not without sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I looked at the time that they allowed us for 300 miles, and it sounded like, yeah, I'd have enough sleep, and I could keep going, so why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the longer they are, the more fun they are, it seems. So.
Well, your paces, you're not out there like for the marathons. I'm sure you're out there going as hard as you possibly can. Those ultra events are just so different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, of course, some people, knock themselves out.
Yeah.
That's never my goal. My goal is to have as much fun as I can. And which gives you more fun?
Yeah.
You're using up the whole 100 hours or finishing in 80 hours. I mean, I get 20 more hours fun than as if I beat myself up. So, yeah, if I'm a little ahead of schedule, I'll just pull into an aid station and relax and have a lot of fun, gabbing with everybody. Yeah, trail races are for fun and road races are for competition.
Yeah, that's good. I'm sure there's going to be some people that would beg to differ that running for 100 hours is fun, but I think it's
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of thing where every time you have to sit there and wonder what the heck you're doing out there. But
yeah,
that's the most important rule that you have to learn. The most important lesson to be learned in something like 100 miles or maybe 50 or who knows, is that if you just keep going, the finish line will show up. And after about 60 or 70 miles into 100, sometimes you just can't imagine that the end will arrive. It's just, you just can't believe that you can suffer. Remember, after 60 miles, you've got 40 miles to go. That's another, 10 hours.
Yeah.
You've run 60 miles. And, you just keep going and eventually the finish line is there. And once you've learned that, you can always get it out because it will be over. But that first time, it's really hard to convince yourself that the suffering will end.
Yeah. So, like, as far as sports psychology and mindfulness and stuff like that, how does that? Do you use that a lot to kind of get yourself through a lot of self-talk?
I do have a couple things I say to myself in a really long run. One is that when you start feeling really bad and you're tired and it's a struggle to go on, I tell myself that this is why I do it. I mean, if it were easy, why would you go out and run 100 miles? I mean, it's the first 60 miles is what got you to this point. And it's now when you can begin the experience of doing 100 miles. This is why you do it, to reach that point where you're at your limits and just keep on going. Then sometimes if I get to a really boring part of a really long run, for instance, at the end of the Bigfoot 200, last 12 miles was on a flat road. Here you've been going through the most awesome up and down scenery anywhere to be found. And then you're dumped out onto this road. And how do you keep going? And I have a sort of a little ditty that I sing to myself that amazingly enough keeps me going. I just sing, I run is what I do. I run. And I just, do that with a step and it just keeps me going. And if I'm tempted to stop, then I'd be making a liar of myself, So that keeps me going.
That works. I love it. So then, since when you go to the ultra, like doing these 100, 200 mile races, going back to doing, let's say, just a regular marathon, 26.2, do you feel like this is easy, because you're really not running that far? What do you tell yourself?
There's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I do get to the starting line of a marathon and think to myself, I'm almost done. And, 5K, well, 5K, I'm going to hate that no matter what, but 10K or 15K, half marathon, I sit there and think, I only have to suffer for an hour, I mean, heck, I've suffered for 12, 24 hours straight in some of these races, all I have to do. So yeah, it kind of numbs your sense of pain a little bit to do an ultra for a long, long time, I think.
Yeah, I think there's advantages to that. Again, if you're going out there, you're right. You can suffer for, just a couple hours as opposed to, for a whole day. So
I tell myself when I'm telling myself it's only another hour or something, or only an hour to start with, I'm reminded of when I'm out there going from one aid station to another. And this is how your mind can work in an ultra. You sit there and you look at your watch or your time and say, oh, all right, it's 3 hours to the next aid station. Yeah, I'm almost there. Really, time and distance and pace, they just take on a whole new meaning when you're running all day.
Yeah, I agree. So when going to trail running, I know there's a lot of people that are afraid to go to trail running. One, because it's more technical. How do you think that helped your running overall? Do you think it did?
Well, I can guarantee you that I didn't think so, and my coach didn't think so. I hired my coach, and and immediately found out that while he thought I hired him to run marathons, I would sign up for these big ultras, and of course he would have to work those into my schedule. And I'm sure he'd beat his head against the wall every time I signed up for one. But eventually I became really, really good, and we decided that it wasn't despite this; it was because of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't anybody who is approaching world records on the road that does ultras.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It must be a good thing. And so I divide my year into seasons. I'll 3 or 4 months where I'll do nothing but ultras, and 3 or 4 months where I've just trained for marathons, and they feed off each other.
Yeah, I think that change of pace. I think again, it's technical. You got a lot more hills, more than you're going to find for a lot of the marathons. So there's a benefit. I know I became a better runner when I started doing trails. It's also nice strength training too, basically.
Well, the way I think about it is base training. I mean, you're building up so much, strength in your legs, but it isn't speed. And that's what a lot of marathon courses are like 16 weeks, they have this set schedule, but mine is 8 weeks or 6 weeks because I don't have to build up distance. I only have to get the speed back. And this huge base and strength, is something you can leverage to go faster. So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
That's good. I like it. So you mentioned a coach. When did you transition to a coach, and did you have any doubts before you started with a coach?
Okay, this is that my motto seems to be just run. Well, I'd say coaching is the one the one exception that proves the rule. If you just run and don't have a coach, you're not going to be a good runner.
Yeah.
Depends on your goal. If you want to have fun, just run.
Yeah.
But because a lot of people going into ultras, they want to do their first 50K, and they say, what's a good training plan, or 50 or 100? What's a good? Just run. I mean, you don't need a coach or a training plan. Just go out and do it. Learn from that. Find out what works for you. If you start listening to everybody else from the get-go, you'll never find out what works for you. A lot better. But I did just run coaching wise for 7 years, and my PRs were coming down until they weren't. My PR at one point was 3:16 on a really fast course, and a year and a half later or so, I tried to beat it at Toronto. my goal back then was to try and win a big city marathon, but not including Boston or New York or Chicago. I knew those were, way beyond my ability to win. And I didn't think I'd ever have a chance to win there. But I tried to win at Philadelphia, Miami, Toronto, always came up short. And at Toronto, I went in hoping to, win and beat that 3:16. I ran 3:29, totally the wrong way. And I said, okay, that's it. I'm getting older. If I want to find out how good I can be, let me hire a coach. I mean, they're really expensive. But it's 5 months till Boston. So, I really said to my coach, I said, okay, I'm giving you 5 months to get me on the podium at Boston. I'm sure he thought, who the hell is this? He thinks he can get on the podium at Boston when that's the best he can do. Boy, training went so well in those 5 months. I had so many breakthroughs where I knew my fitness had advanced to a whole new level. And at first I was hoping just to run 3:12, which historically would have given me maybe a 1 in 10 chance of getting on the podium.
Yeah.
But, we decided to shoot for 3:07.
Okay.
Because training had gone so well. And, let's see, but it was really hot. And so we were both thrilled when I ran 3:09.
Okay.
That was a PR by 7 minutes. And that was a 20-minute improvement over where I thought I was at the top of my game just 5 months earlier. So that's the value of a coach. You can do things you just unbelievable how much more is inside you that a coach can draw out.
What did he change up?
Well, a coach has two values. One, he knows the right workouts. And in my case, I thought I was old and that I should run when I was sore. I'd go out and run a hard workout, and I'd wait until the soreness went away. And I'm old. I got to rest up. He certainly wasn't having any of that. I was running 6 days a week. A lot of them were hard workouts.
Uh-huh.
I was so sore I could barely make it down the stairs in the morning. And then I'd look at my workout schedule and I'd stare in amazement. He wants me to do what thing? But running on sore muscles is how you make them stronger. You don't wait until you're totally rested. So he knew the right mix of fast workouts, recovery runs, long workouts, aerobic workouts, tempo runs and all. I mean, he'd mix it up, make it different every week.
Okay.
So all those things were things that I wasn't doing. Basically, I was a great long, slow mile advocate.
Okay.
With an occasional track workout.
Okay.
But, so that works better. But I don't know, of equal importance is the fact that if I go out and try and work hard, I just can't work myself to exhaustion just to please myself. It's just, there isn't any way. I can't even imagine dreaming up a workout. But when you have a coach, at least for me, I'd rather die than have to report back to him that I couldn't do his workout. So, accomplishing the workout was just of total importance to me because he told me to do it and I had to do it. And there's no frigging way in the world I would ever be able to do that except that the coach told me to.
Yeah.
There's no way. I'm not even close.
Yeah.
Even knowing that now what I know, I still couldn't make myself work as hard as he makes me work.
Yeah.
The only way I can do it is to have him assign it and for me to go out and do it.
Yeah. Plus you're paying him, so you want to get your money's worth. Yeah.
After that 5 months, it never occurred to me to even, I never even look at the bills, they just get automatically, whatever he's changed my life.
Yeah.
What could he possibly charge that would be too much?
That's incredible. So were you doing any split running days in there, like running morning and evening?
I think I've only done a two for once or twice.
Okay. Okay.
Usually just run in the morning.
Okay. That's what I wondered. So did you have him when you went to do Jacksonville? Was he your coach for
Yeah,
that too?
yeah, that was, yeah, he'd been my coach for about 5 years at that point.
Okay. So going into what December 15th, 2018, right? Is the day you
Hmm.
did. So going in your mindset, your goal was to try to break the record, correct?
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure, because, well, that would be a new PR, of
Yeah.
course, but
Yeah.
only by a minute.
Okay.
I only needed to improve less than a minute over my performance at Toronto. But originally, Jacksonville was going to be my A race. Um, but then Toronto invited me to go there, to start with the elites and all. I couldn't pass that up. And my coach and I knew that it was just a little too short a time to train. And we knew going in I would probably come up just short. And that's exactly what happened. Um, but I'd already signed up for all kinds of other stuff after Toronto because, are you familiar with how I trained my last 2 weeks for Jacksonville?
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, what's the conventional wisdom? You do your long run, 20 miles, 3 weeks out, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then you start tapering down. Don't do any hard racing. Okay. 2 weeks out. Okay, this is 2 weeks before a world record attempt. I
Yeah.
ran a 50K on Saturday and a hard marathon on Sunday.
Uh,
I mean, so my long run consisted of running, 2 races,
yeah.
one an ultra and one a hard marathon. And then I ran a hard 5K the next week.
Okay.
Um, so, yeah, how could I be 100% confident? But I love blowing away conventional wisdom and the old conventional wisdom that you can't run that much before a marathon, and you need a long taper, and you can't race too much. That was my 40th race that year.
Wow.
I mean, I raced every weekend. It was just
Yeah.
every race made me stronger.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of conventional wisdom that's just out to lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can almost never race too much.
Yeah. So going through that, did you? Because I know you were from reading through the report. I saw something that you were ahead of schedule a little bit, and then kind of struggled towards the end.
Well, I was usually by about mile 20, 21, I can tell whether or not I'm going to make it. If I feel signs of faith, I've always known by mile 20 or 21 how I was going to finish. Okay, so at Jacksonville, I was about 50 seconds ahead of time. And with about 3 miles to go, I started feeling a cramp in my right calf. And, it'd be like a twinge every 30 seconds or so. And I kind of developed a little stutter step that I could use to make it go away. But I was worried. And with about a mile to go, I started slowing down because I knew I had 50 seconds to play with. So I slowed my pace up about 20 seconds a mile. And, I don't know exactly how much I slowed down. But, but the cramp kept coming more and more frequently. And then I made sort of like the next to last turn. I was turned into this little field that approached the track. And so I could see the track. I'm only a quarter mile from the finish. And I got a full on cramp. It just totally seized up. And I went down, and there was no way I could even walk in from there. And so, of course, I desperately, you know how you do. You try and move your foot one way or the other and massage it like crazy. I spent about 20 seconds doing that. And finally, it eased up. And so I kind of picked up to a reasonable pace again. But if it hadn't been for that, I would have really blistered the last quarter mile. I would have finished pretty close to under whatever the next minute was. I would have finished under 2:54 for sure. But I didn't want to, wanted to try and minimize the odds of getting another cramp. And doing a nosedive on the track. So yeah, it went away, and I went in, and I finished about 25 seconds ahead of the record.
That's incredible. It's so hard when something like that happens to kind of fight through that, especially when you're that close. That's pretty incredible.
Oh, it was just, please, not now. Not this. Don't let me lose this way,
Yeah, I know. Especially when you can see the finish line. I've, like you said, knowing mile 20 or 21, usually I know by mile 18 whether it's going to be a good afternoon or not. I've gotten to too many races or too many marathons. I get to 18, I'm like feeling great, and then all of a sudden, like, oh boy, this is going to be a long hour and a half to get the last in.
I guess at mile 22 or so, if I'm going to get those premonitions that not going to be good, I'll have had them by then. And,
yeah.
So, and again, it's just 4 more miles.
Yeah. Yeah. Comparatively, it can be done.
The funny thing is, I didn't tell anybody I was going to go for the record there.
Okay.
My coach was hoping, I wasn't sure, but I'd come up short at Toronto, and, that was sort of news. Dykes fails at Toronto.
Yeah.
I didn't want to tell everybody I was going to try at Jacksonville, and then everybody come, Dykes, 2-time loser.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of people said, are you going to go for the record at Jacksonville? And I said, hey, I just ran a 50K in a marathon 2 weeks ago. What do you think? I didn't say I wasn't, but I certainly gave everybody the impression that I had no intention whatsoever. And really, I went down there and I thought, okay, if I set the record, I'll post about it on Facebook. And, a few people congratulate me. No big deal.
Yeah.
I was just totally amazed at the interest that people took in that record. It hadn't occurred to me that anybody would notice unless I posted it on Facebook.
Trust me, people noticed, and that's why it's just an incredible feat, to be able to do that. First of all, to be sub 3 hours. For any age, I think it's, other than the elites, we all struggle anyways, and that's that's fantastic. Great job.
Well, it just goes to show, and in fact, of course, when it wasn't, when it became clear that it wouldn't be ratified as a world record, the whole point of beating that record wasn't to be the record holder; it was to satisfy a training goal. That was what my goal was in training, to do that, and well, I did it. So, the failure to get the world record really didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
Besides, who wants to be a flash in the pan?
Yeah.
If I want to be mentioned in the same paragraph or even a book as Ed Whitlock, I've got to be able to do it when he was 73, or when I'm 73. He did it when he was 73. It would still have an asterisk on it, even if I held the age group record, because I was 70 and he was 73. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I want to be a legitimate contender, I've got to do it again. And well, if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't.
Okay. So is that at this point? So you've got the unofficial record. Is that a target, or is that a goal of yours, or just obviously just a PR each? To continue to PR. What's more important to you, holding a record or PRing?
That's a good question. Of course, the question doesn't make any sense, because if I PR, then it's a world record. So, so I could set a world record and not get a PR.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I guess.
Let's see. It's kind of hard to dissociate them.
Okay.
But the next attempt will probably be London.
Okay.
If they have a London. Because everybody's postponing their big marathons into October, so it's kind of be a strange time. But I'll just have to let the chips fall where they may, and all the others, and go all out at London. And then, of course, if the weather's terrible or for some other reason, Toronto is 2 weeks later, and I could I could obviously pull my punches at London and then go to Toronto, or maybe Chicago will be in that time frame. I don't know. Boston. Well, can't set a record at Boston, so that wouldn't work. But there is one other opportunity, but it's an opportunity to break the world record unofficially 2 times. I mean, if I can do it once unofficially, why not twice?
Yeah, that's it.
So next April, I'm entered in one of those Revel marathons.
Okay.
The Revel Mount Charleston. So it's a certified course, but it's not record eligible because it's got a 5,000 foot drop. You know?
Okay.
So it's wickedly fast.
Yeah.
And I should be able to, if I'm in good shape, I should be able to break the world record there, but it won't count. So.
Hey, but it's still everything counts.
Yeah, but I would do it just for the just for the fun of it. To have break the world record unofficially twice.
Yeah, I think that's a good feat to have. Yeah, that's a good thing to hang your hat on. So what would you say are a couple of secrets to your success?
Oh, well, number one is coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just can't stress enough that Gene Dykes without a coach is Joe Ordinary out there. I'd still be just a good runner, but nothing would make headlines. And with the coach, changed my life. So, yeah, coaching is the main key. The second, I think, is shattering those misconceptions. You can't run ultras and be a good road runner, and you can't race too often and be a good racer. I'm really convinced the more I race, the better I get. It's just, I don't, of course, I don't know. I race so much, I don't know how I'd do if I took time off. I probably took sufficient time off before most marathons, but I don't know. Look what I did at Jacksonville.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to make any difference. If you're strong, you can recover in a week. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I was looking at your race reports of all the places you've gone. You've traveled all over the place.
Well, one of the reasons you said, well, how did you get into ultras? Well, one of the reasons I kept going longer and longer is because what a great way to combine scenic travel with what you love to do, running. If you want to sign up for a 100 miler, why not make it so do a stage race. Well, do it in the Alps or do it in Scotland. If you want to do a 200 miler, do them out west or do them in Australia.
Yeah.
I think I first started doing those with stage races with my daughter, and boy, do we have fun, and it combined travel and running. Oh, if you want to get into running ultras, if you've got the time, run a stage race. That is the one way to convince yourself that you can. If 100 miles in a week is beyond your ken, do a stage race, and you'll find out that you can do 130 miles in a week easy.
Yeah.
And have a blast doing it. So, running and travel. What could be a better combination than that?
Yeah, that's why it's funny. I do triathlons, so obviously everybody picks that destination race. So I've been working in traveling around doing some of those events in different places, and it is cool. My wife jokes, she goes, "Can't we just go on vacation just to vacation?" And so I said, "We'll go here, but I want to do this race." So I think you're right. That's the way we do it to get around.
Well, I talked my wife into doing a destination race once. One time I said, "Let's go to Paris for the weekend." Yeah, sure. So I did the Paris Marathon. But at some point I said, I've always wanted to go to Iceland, and they have the Reykjavik Marathon. So how about if we go and tour Iceland for a week and then do the marathon? She said, okay.
Yeah.
And turned out to be the best vacation we ever had. It was just, Iceland is just an amazing place to do a tour. And but what made it special was going there in order to run that marathon. So, yeah, see how far you can stretch that. See what you can sneak by your wife.
Yeah,
that's interesting enough.
Yeah, that's it. You basically say the destination first, and then the race always comes in a little bit later on.
Oh, by the way, there's a race.
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to be gone this day doing this event, but yeah, we're going to go. I'll talk about all the other great things we're going to be doing in travel.
Yeah. Would you like to have a day for yourself to go shopping in Reykjavik?
Yeah, that's it. I think if you look at the numbers of like the age groups of like these races, for triathlons, I think over 50 is definitely, and I think ultra, same thing. You have to have time, one, to train to do any of this stuff. And then to travel, it's not a cheap sport, any of these races, and then also to travel around. So I think it's fantastic. And plus, people like you are pushing the boundaries where we're seeing 70s and mid 70s people doing these races, and that's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another thing. Why I tell people to wait. If you've got time and money when you're retired. But what you have to dispel is the notion that, it won't be any fun running when I'm old. I'm just having such a total blast.
Yeah,
it's more fun. If I had to live my life over again, I'd definitely be taking it easy running early on.
Yeah, that's great. So that's good. If you started at 56, there's definitely hope for me. So that's why there's definitely room to improve. So recovery, what's recovery like for you after, like, say, let's go back to where you did those 3 events. What was it like after Jacksonville? How long did it take you to recover from?
Well, that ended my last race of the year. I don't have to go check. Maybe I did have another race, but no, I do marathons on successive days, weeks. I can recover after a week from anything.
Now, how about nutrition? Are you on a special diet, or do you take any extra?
Yeah. Both before and after, it's seafood diet.
Okay. And then, how is sleep for you? Are you pretty consistent, or?
You didn't nod about the seafood. You know that diet, right?
Yes, I do. Okay. Seafood, need it.
Right, that's it. Okay,
that's
so
I figured that. That's why I'm like.
People say, do you have a special day? Certainly, you're vegan or this or that or keto.
No. Yeah, I figured it was seafood and eat it, not the seafood as far as out of the ocean.
Although I do love seafood. But, everything in moderation is another, good keyword to use there. I mean, fortunately, I like to eat healthy, but junk food is always in danger when I'm in the room.
Now, do you have any issues with digestion with, let's say, these ultra events? As far as how are things during the event?
Well, one of the questions you think about asking was, do you have any misconceptions about yourself going into ultras? And one I had was, nausea is the cross I have to bear. And I read up on it and how to cure it and tried everything, ginger chews and the right hydration and the right salt tablets and blah, 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 blah. Basically, it turns out that for most people, and they don't like to hear this, is that nausea comes because you're not fit enough for what you're trying to do. And your body, starts getting tired, which is a signal to stop. You keep going, right? You start suffering, you keep going. Your body says, I'm going to shut you down. And nausea always does the trick. It's your body's way of saying stop. And, but that said, still, sometimes it's sort of a catch-22. Well, how do you get the stamina you need when nausea keeps shutting you down? And, but I learned some tricks for that. I get a lot of my calories from Coke.
Okay.
I fill up my water bottles with half Coke, half water, and suck on that all the way around. So there's a lot of calories, and it helps cool your stomach. I also have a pharmaceutical that I take. If anybody wants to get their doctor to prescribe it, it's ondansetron. The common name is Zofran.
Yeah.
It's it's something that's prescribed for nausea. chemical people who have had chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, great thing. It keeps nausea at bay and allows you to finish that race. And then pretty soon you don't need it. Yeah. But what I learned is conventional wisdom was wrong about nausea. It's always conventional wisdom was always, oh, if you do this right or you do that right or this right. Heck no, it's just conditioning.
Yeah.
You got to be in good condition. So.
Okay. Now, as far as like you talked a little bit about during the race, that mind body, what your kind of that self-talk you tell yourself in that little ditty. Anything else you do? Do you do any meditation outside of, day to day or journaling or anything or goal setting?
Oh, I don't know. The only thing I can think of along that way is I spend a lot of time looking for enter buttons. Looking at various races.
Okay.
Saving websites of places I want to travel to.
Okay.
Every time a race was canceled this year, I think I went up and signed up for another ultra for next year. And that's why I got so many big ultras next year. Because every time I missed a race, I just signed up for another race in the next year.
Okay.
So, yeah. And that's another thing I tell runners is, ask them what's their next race. And if they say, I don't know, I say, you're missing half the fun of running, which is looking forward to races. I plan out, 60% of my calendar the following year, the previous year. And I get a whole blast out of looking forward to them. Yeah, if you're not looking forward to races, you're missing out on a lot of the fun. Yeah,
and I think that's been the challenge for everybody this year is as things got canceled is again staying focused because I think most of us are pretty goal oriented, especially if you're doing a lot of events. And when you take that away, that end point is gone, and I think that's a struggle. Like you've been injured part of this year, so again, you've been able to just say, okay, I'm not going to do. You're not going to worry about it right now. But how is that been? How has your struggle with COVID been?
Oh, I don't know. It really just doesn't seem to have affected me much.
Okay.
I don't. Because I've been injured, it doesn't affect me much. It would have affected me hugely if I hadn't been sitting home anyway. But we don't go to restaurants and movies. But I don't know. I don't get to see my kids. Don't get to go visit my kids and my single granddaughter. So that's the worst thing, I suppose. Doing a lot of great cooking, so I don't miss the restaurants. I love to cook. When I retired, I took over the cooking duties.
Okay.
I look forward to doing that. Of course, which makes it hard to keep the weight down.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be able to start behind, when you go back because it's going to make a difference. I saw that, you've been pretty good with your weight because where do you like to be as far as like your race weight, I guess?
My race weight's about 138.
Okay.
I'm 5'10". I'm usually low 140s otherwise.
Okay.
I was 146 just a week ago, and I was starting to really feel terrible, and so I went on a diet, and because I thought I'd want to try and reach 138 by my next race, which is the Naples Half Marathon in Florida in late January.
Okay.
Yeah, I said, oh man, that's a long time, but I got a lot of weight to lose, but I lost 5 pounds in 4 days. So
good.
But so now I'm down to within striking distance. I got to 142 and kind of lost my nerve. Trying to keep it at 142. If it sneaks up again, then I'll just have to do what it takes to get down to closer to 140.
Yeah. Do your children do any of this? Do they run or into ultras?
I run races with both daughters. My younger daughter and I were supposed to run 4 marathons together last year. We got one in Los Angeles, which was exactly 1 week before the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
So we're still planning on doing some of those next year. And the other daughter, I was going to run a marathon and a 50K with her. So
okay.
Yeah.
Are they as
That's
fast
always
as
the
you
highlight
are?
of every year.
Are they as fast as you are?
My younger daughter's probably around 320.
Okay.
Not bad. And the older daughter probably could get down there, but she likes biking a lot.
Yeah.
You'd like her better, I guess. So, but she's only run one marathon, and I ran it with her.
Okay.
And I shouldn't have, but I promised her I would run it with her, and I did. I was injured. I had hurt my Achilles about a week before, and it was killing me. But I tried and found some sort of gait that got me through it. But it was the last time I ran for about 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great though to do that with her. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So what do you think you need to continue to do this for another 10, 15 years?
Oh, well, I don't know. Probably be lucky, I guess. You never know when your knees are going to start. Running doesn't hurt your knees, but just naturally there's arthritis there. But my knees, I think, are better than when I started running. So, if 90% of the people don't know it yet, but the knees are bad, or running is bad for the knees myth is long since been disproved. And now they're even going to say running is good for your knees. And I've known that for a long time now, that running has made my knees feel better. But, arthritis is kind of inevitable, and that could shut me down. Who knows? I don't know. I suppose I still think I can do anything. At some point, I suppose I'll have to come to the realization that I can't do it all. But I'm hoping next year isn't it. Next year is a real ambitious. Would be about my most ambitious year, and I still don't see any reason why I can't. So I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I'm not doing anything now to prolong it, except hoping that injuries like this allow me to reset a bit and our time that doesn't count against my total running. There's this theory that no matter when you start running, you've got 15 good years. And as you pointed out, I've been competitive for 14. So, do I have one more good year? I don't know. Ed Whitlock ran hard, real well for a lot more than 15. So it's not hard and fast. But, I think something to that effect must be true, though, because who would you think, so let's reel back to when I'm 20 or 30 years old. And somebody had said, okay, suppose you were going to break the world record in marathon, when you're age 70. Who do you think your stiffest competition would be? Well, of course, you'd look at the guys who are winning Chicago and New York and Boston. Where are them? None of them. There isn't a single one of them is any good. You can't tell me that they all just lost interest. They're burned out. You only have so many good years, or they'd be here now. Joni is one of the, Samuelson, Joni Benoit. She's amazing. She's still at the top of her age graded group. She's just amazing. She's been able to keep it up that long. I tried hard when I was younger. I wasn't anywhere close to as good as they were. So for her to be that good back then, see, I'm only that good now. I wasn't any good back then. But she's been good her whole life. That's amazing. I mean, just truly amazing.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, because as I've been doing this podcast and talking to people, it's amazing that most of the people I've talked to started in their 50s, and their stories are kind of like yours. Did sports growing up, but kind of went away from it, or really weren't as athletic, and now they're continuing to just make huge strides, and they get better each year. And the mindset is, we know that our bodies are aging each year, but again, if I look at it, we're not top of our game, we're not maxed out, there's so much room to grow, and there's so much potential that I know I have, and I think everybody has. So it's awesome to see people doing these things and staying active and kind of just pushing what those kind of preconceived notions that we have of what aging is all about. It's pretty awesome to see.
What do you think about this theory? Okay, so right now, I'm competitive for age group, but at some point, I think somebody's going to come along who would have been an Olympic caliber runner, but didn't discover running. That person with that kind of talent hasn't burned himself out. And when he discovers running at age 50 or 60, he is just going to totally blow the records away. Because I didn't have that kind of talent.
Yeah.
I'm only doing it because I didn't burn out early. But if you bring in somebody who has real talent as a runner and let him start running when he's older, oh man, he is really going to be something to behold.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see. I think we're finding each year people are doing more and more. I'm involved with the senior games, and we're seeing these people in their 80s, 90s. Last year in the senior game, they had 3 people over 100 running a dash, which is pretty incredible to me. I think the one didn't start till they were in their 90s. I think so.
Yeah. Sometimes I think maybe I should try a reset and not run for 6 years and then come back and take on the 80-year-olds. But
no, keep going. Don't.
I don't know. I'm trying to guess. I'm thinking my life expectancy is probably only about 90. That gives me 7 more years than my dad.
Yeah.
So I can't save it too long.
No, you keep doing what you're doing. So just a couple more questions. So do you have any special mantras or quotes or people that inspire you?
Something that somebody else is, no, I don't think so. Kind of like, if you ask whom I admire, I have two answers for that.
Okay.
One is because he's just like me, is Michael Wardian.
Okay.
He does all kinds of races. He runs ultras, he runs short races, he runs races every weekend. I love that guy. He's out there doing it all. And he always looks like he's having a blast. Whereas a lot of other people look like, they're record holders and they're working hard. They just don't look like they're having a blast. We are.
Yeah.
The other people I admire are kind of like people at the other end of the spectrum speed-wise. I've gone out and run some stage races or 100-milers where it's really hot or the conditions are terrible, and I'll come in at the end of a stage race, say, and 4 or 5 hours later, the back of the packers are coming in. And those people are suffering just as much as you, except they're doing it for 5 or 6 hours longer. They have no hope of winning anything, but they're out there because they love what they're doing. They love running. And so those back of the packers who aren't very fast, they're the people I really, really admire, that they're doing what they love.
Yeah.
Now in 200s, I'm a back of the packer.
Yeah.
It's kind of more by choice.
Yeah.
Not because I'm out there suffering the whole time. So.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I love these events because you see people all shapes, sizes, ages, abilities, and the fact that they're all doing. I think the person who finishes last is just as important as the person who wins the race. And I'm with you. I think the ones that finish last actually, they struggle sometimes to get there, but again, their perseverance is just incredible. And so I love that just as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, their only reason can be because it's fun.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
So that leads me to my last question. I use the hashtag #MyMilesAre4. If you had to sum up in 1 or 2 words, why do you do the things that you're doing?
Well, I can't do any better than just run.
Yeah.
There's so many aspects of it's just 2 simple words, but there's just run in that you don't need all the side things. You just run because, it's so much fun. And, I don't know. People say, are you ever going to write a book? I got the title.
Yeah.
It's just run. And I have a lot of chapters. chapter titles. Each is going to take a different aspect of why Just Run is a great philosophy. And they say, well, when are you going to write it? No, never. But it's fun to think about. I'm jotting down thoughts, and I have this website, and I'm going to write a whole bunch of articles for it, and eventually I might collect those into a book. But I don't know. I just also got to get over the thought that who would ever want to read anything I'd write? I don't know. So
trust me, they're out there. I would be the first one to buy it. So I think, now you have some time right now as we wait for things to open back up. You have that time. Mm-hmm. And actually, what is your website, if you don't mind, that we can let people know how to get a hold of you?
ultrageezer.com.
Love it.
It's, it's kind of, my daughter and I came up with that. We had a little brainstorming session and trying to think of, good things to use as a hashtag. And I finally came up with Ultra Geezer because it has that, that double meaning, ultra old and a geezer runs ultras. So,
well,
I don't know if you've ever seen, I have a pink shirt that I wear to all my marathons, and my daughter made it for me, and it has, hashtag Ultra Geezer, and then underneath it, marathon / ultra number, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And my age, so, next, I have a 100-miler in December I haven't completely given up on. But if I do, that'll be number 129.
Oh, incredible. Well, hey, Gene, I hope you heal up. I hope you get ready to get after it in 2021. I can't wait to see what you're able to do, but you definitely heal up here and get back to normal again.
Okay, and I hope you get out of the dark side of doing triathlon.
Well,
get back to the real fun part of those three.
Yeah, well, I did my first 50-miler back in September to celebrate my 50th birthday. So I did 52 miles. And it was interesting because I interviewed Bob Becker, who actually holds a record at a race for the ages. He was 74, and he did 230 miles last year in 2019. So I talked to him, and he basically did that event as a 1-minute run, 1-minute walk. So that's what I ended up doing for my 52 miles. And it was great. I came out of that, felt awesome. And so I think you can only go up. That's the thing, is just finding that next race. And so I'm definitely going to be doing ultras and, throwing my hat back into marathon. I'm not as fast as you, but at least I enjoy running.
Well, if you don't have an all-time PR in sight, you have kind of like a short-term PR, like fastest since I turned 40 or something like that.
For marathon, my goal was I'm trying to get sub 4. I did Marine Corps twice. I've done Tobacco Road here twice. And I've gotten better each time, 426, 420 to 408 to 406. So I'm working my way closer to that sub 4. So that's my goal, is to get sub 4 on a marathon. And then
it's only 9-minute miles.
Yeah, I'm good for the first. We joke is that the last one I did with a friend, we were on target for 3:45, and we ran the whole thing together. And as things start to slip, I started doing the math in my head, and it's amazing. Once I got behind mentally, I probably could have gutted it out, but I just mentally I struggled. And even with him yelling at me, I finally told him to stop talking to me. That was a joke. I said, "You're not helping me at this point." So it was all a mental game. I know that. So I hope that I'm better at this point now that I've done an Ironman and gotten better mentally. But it's a struggle.
Well, pooping out at the end of a marathon is, I don't know, more conditioning than that.
Yeah.
I think that would be one of my Just Run chapters. People think, if I only have the right mantra, only if I do this, no, just run. You need to be in better condition.
Yeah. Well, that's the answer. I definitely wasn't. And I knew that, though. That's the problem, is I knew I wasn't in as good of condition, at least as I thought I was at that point.
Well, for instance, people think, oh, man, you ran a new PR or you set a world record. You must have just taken yourself beyond your limits. That's hogwash, I mean, Jacksonville was probably one of the easiest marathons I ever did because I just ran what I was trained to do. And when training is harder than the marathon because there you're trying to do more than you're capable of. And whereas in a marathon, the whole idea is to get to the finish line just as you've used up all your strength. Yeah, if I had to go another mile, I'd fall apart and it'd be terrible. But no, as long as you're doing what you're trained to do, it's it's not mental. It's having conditioned yourself to do it. So yeah, that's what I tell beginning runners. I think a lot of people quit after one day because they go out and we all know how we feel on our first day of running. It's just terrible and you just can't keep going. And I think they think, wow, if it's this hard when I'm running this slow, how bad is it going to be when I'm running fast? And the answer is the faster you go, the easier it is.
Yeah, you get done faster.
Once you're able to run faster, you're way better. Nothing's worse than out of shape pain. I mean,
yeah.
And the more in shape you are, the less painful it is.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks a lot, Gene. I had fun. I appreciate you taking the time with me.
Okay, this is great. Look forward to your checking out my schedule one of these years. I bet I could do that race with him.
Yes. Oh, that would be awesome. I can't wait till we can start opening things back up and start doing things again.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode and were able to get some insight into how when weathering athlete approaches each day of training and racing to stay as injury-free as possible. I believe his biggest strengths are made up of three factors. First, his mantra of just run provides a foundation and has taken him to many places. He details how he typically will race almost every weekend, both nationally and internationally. The year he broke the 70 to 74-year-old marathon record, that was his 40th race that year. I promise his taper the 2 weeks prior was not something you will find on most racing plans. Honestly, you won't find it on any racing plans. The second strength is his have fun attitude, which makes any race, no matter what distance, enjoyable to him. His quote of, "What's the fun of finishing a race in 80 hours when they give you 100 hours? That would be giving up on 20 hours of fun." I'm not sure many would look at it that way, but it works for him. The third strength, which he views as the most important, is his use of a coach. His ability to follow a training plan exactly as his coach has prescribed has allowed him to build the necessary physical and mental stamina that is required to chase down PRs and the world records, which, as far as the marathon go, are one and the same. He will admit he has not been able to run much over the past 5 to 6 months due to dealing with an injury. However, as with any injuries he has sustained in the past, he is willing to take advantage of the break and allow his body to come back stronger. Plus, if there's a year to give the body a break, this is the year. I look forward to keeping a close eye on what this Ultra Geezer is able to accomplish. Thank you for taking time in your busy schedule. If you find today's or any other episode inspiring, I ask you to consider to join our Patreon program. Details can be found at www.weatheredathlete.com. Also, please don't forget to hit subscribe to this podcast, share with your friends, give me a rating on iTunes, leave me a comment or drop me a line if you feel you have what it takes to enter the Weathered Athlete podcast. Lastly, no matter how you complete your miles, I encourage you to use the following hashtag, #MyMilesAre4, as a way to reinforce the purpose of those miles. As always, my miles are for the journey. Pete Barusik.